Hello viewers, welcome back to our YouTube channel, and today we are going to kickstart our videos on financial accounting. And the video that I want to look at is I want to let you know about some of the tips. We are going to focus on the tips to understanding financial accounting at all levels of accounting study. So I want to look at the tips to understanding financial accounting at all levels of study. That's basically what I want to focus on for today. And today's discussion is basically going to be on these tips, or what are some of the things that we can actually do to make sure that we excel in every paper of financial accounting at all levels, whether you are doing bachelor's, whether you are doing CPA, whether you are doing the diploma, whether you are doing ATD, that accounting diploma that was transferred to the institute, to the UBTEB, whichever level, as long as you are doing a financial accounting paper. If you get these right, then you can't fail any paper about financial accounting. So we are going to look at the do's and don'ts. We are going to focus on the do's and don'ts. What you are supposed to do and what you are not supposed to do to avoid retaking your financial accounting paper at any level. So, but before I go into that, I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you to all our subscribers, because without you giving us your positive suggestions and text requests, we wouldn't be able to craft the content based on your interest. Secondly, I would like also to request those that have just come across our channel to kindly subscribe, like our videos, and also share to others, especially your friends and families, to help them reach this same content that you've enjoyed, and it will also help us to reach a larger audience. And because we believe in a collective effort, and without your efforts, we wouldn't be where we are now today. So thank you so much for supporting our work. Now, what I want to clarify is the aspect that we are going to basically give highlights that are going to be for financial accounting at all levels. And according to some of the text requests that I received on my WhatsApp number about incorporating specifically financial accounting from lower certifications. These certifications, they were suggesting that at least we have something that is catering for the degree holders, or those who are pursuing a degree. Maybe they are doing bachelor's of accounting and finance, they are doing BCom, they are doing BBA, whichever, as long as they are within the accounting docket. Even the diploma guys. So, and also the good thing is that at the Institute of Certified Public Accountants, we have a diploma entry. We have that diploma qualification, they call it ATD, Previously, they were calling it ATC, but this is the Accounting Technician Diploma. So, for that reason, I would say that we are going to make sure that we incorporate all tutorials that can be able to help someone who is doing a CPA, who is doing a degree, who is doing a diploma, or who is doing ATD, even those that are doing certificates in accounting. This would basically be of help. Now, given the fact that we are going to craft content based on those lower sections, it means we are going to have videos that are ranging from the basic to the advanced. So we are going to have everything from day one. The assumption is going to be you don't actually have any accounting knowledge. Even those who actually have, this would serve as a reminder or as a revision exercise for those that have attended some accounting somewhere. But not forgetting that the financial accounting for CPA will be put in a different folder basing on the Institute of Certified Public Accountants syllabus for financial accounting. So for those two reasons, that's why specifically we are going to at least incorporate guys who are starting, maybe we are doing their diplomas, bachelors, and those who are going to be upgrading to CPA or ACCA. And talking about the diploma, we had, as I said, we have what we call the ATD. This ATD is Accounting Technician Diploma. Accounting Technician Diploma. Talking about it in a sense that this was actually previously, like last year and downwards, it was handled by the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Uganda. But effective 18th Jan 2024, this same year, this Accounting Technician Diploma was transferred to UBTEB. UBTEB has also its diploma. It's called UBTEB has some is like the way you're seeing UNEB, but they are basically providing diplomas. So they have their diplomas. Most of the times they have what we call the UDBS, Uganda Diploma in Business Studies. Then you get, of course, accounting option, marketing option, stores option, and others. They are also having other diploma courses. And you know, previously UBTEB, these diplomas were being handled by MOBS. UBTEB was under MOBS. Those, the ones that we call UCC, the Uganda Colleges of Commerce. They are also Uganda Cooperative College, but here I'm talking about the Uganda Colleges of Commerce. In Uganda, we have 5. The Uganda College of Commerce. We have UCC Tororo, we have UCC Soroti, we have UCC Aduku, we have Pakwach, and then the one in Kabale. Those are the UCCs that were previously under MOBS, Makerere Business School. But now they were officially transferred to UBTEB. Just like the way the Institute of Certified Public Accountants transferred their diploma, ATD, is now being handled by UBTEB, and UBTEB is Uganda Business Technical Examination Board. That is what we call the UBTEB. And so this ATD is now under UBTEB, effective. It was effective this very January, 18th Jan 2024. So the accounting technician diploma is now under the UBTEB settings. So we are going to incorporate in all these guys that will have at least content that is going to cater for every person as long as we're doing financial accounting. And that's my aim for these financial accounting tutorials or series. And even me personally, I went through this UBTEB. I was on a government doing the Uganda Diploma in Business Studies, and I majored in accounting option. So I was there on a government. That's where I started my career. So I know exactly the kind of things that we are supposed to incorporate in, even though they are not all that different from these other diplomas. But we shall make sure that at least we have everything in there. So we shall also have a playlist, as I said, that is specifically for CPA and SCCA. We shall make tutorials and we shall arrange them according to the syllabus. Yeah, but CPA will actually have its own, playlist on the same YouTube channel. And as a matter of fact, this same video is very important even for those that are doing CPA, that are doing SCCA, that are doing CIMA, whichever. As long as you're doing financial accounting, you must be able to know the do's and don'ts to avoid retaking or rewriting your financial accounting paper. So we are not going to make videos that these are going to be basically related to diploma, but we are going to look at the syllabus of those people. Then we incorporate those videos. The questions are going to be a bit technical. We move from the lower or the beginner level as we keep on progressing. So you may find when the syllabus is for maybe diploma, but we incorporate in questions that are from SCCA, that are from HTD, or that are from CPA past papers, to make sure that at least we get something of a higher value. That's basically my view. So we are going to look at from the beginner view and up to the advanced point of view. So that's what I wanted to clarify as far as this is concerned. So these financial accounting tutorials, as I said, are going to be organized to provide you with what has been found to be the most appropriate sequencing topics as you build the fundamentals of your accounting knowledge to enhance your understanding and extend your ability to cope up with what will possibly appear. Now, at first, to be very strange or to be very impossible to, because there are certain things that seem to be hard or to be impossible actually to explain at the start. But for us to be able to understand financial accounting, we need to follow these tips, which I consider to be a proven path to success in any financial accounting paper at any level of entry. So let's look at those items. We are going to have item per item. We talk about how it's going to be, the relevance of you having that with you, and how it can be able to help you navigate through your financial accounting papers. Now, at the start of any financial accounting course, there are always what we call the course outlines. And these course outlines will have different chapters. And each chapter, this course outline will have chapters. And each chapter has what we call the learning outcomes or the objectives. Learning outcomes or the learning objectives. If you look at the course, whichever course unit it is, whether you are doing principles of accounting, whether you are doing intermediate accounting, whether you're doing advanced financial accounting, all of it has, the course outline always has some chapters, and in each and every chapter, they give you the learning outcomes or what they expect you to have achieved after completing that chapter. Now, as you walk through the course materials, try to detect when you have each of these objectives achieved. Try to detect. If you finish that this is chapter 1, I've finished it. Make sure that you detect or you check yourself to see if the learning outcomes of this chapter 1, you have actually attained them. And at the end of every chapter, check what you have learned against the learning outcomes. If you find that you can't say yes, I have learned that to any of the learning outcomes, then look back through that same chapter and reread the topic that you haven't understood. Because what is going to happen is that in each of these chapters, we are going to have different topics. You may have chapter 1, which is all about introduction to financial accounting. But within the introduction to financial accounting, we have very many things. We have the qualitative factors or the qualitative characteristics. We have things to do with the conceptual framework. And others. So you try to make sure that at the end of each chapter, you have ticked that this learning outcome, I've achieved it. I've achieved this. I've achieved this. If you see that you can't actually tick any of the learning outcome of each chapter, make sure that you go through the same chapter and reread the topics that you may find that you have not yet understood. Because what is going to happen is that most of the times at the end of every chapter, you have some simulations or you have some exercise to do. But if you find the exercise of that chapter, you can't attempt any number, then just notice as it's a matter of fact that you didn't actually learn that chapter. So it means you have to go back and reread the notes that is there until you can satisfy yourself that if I look at any question from this chapter or from this section, I can be able to do it with ease. Because if you can't do that, remember financial accounting is sequential in a sense that it follows. If you don't understand the first one, it will take you a lot of time to understand the second chapter. So it is, we do financial accounting bit by bit by looking at what is supposed to be first. If you don't understand the definition of accounting, then it will be hard for you to understand the kind of things that you are going to do after that. Because at the beginning of the beginning of everything, we expect that what we have at the start as the introduction should give you a wider picture of what you are going to look at in the whole syllabus. So that's my number one tip, that at the start of any course, financial accounting course unit, you have to always see the course outline and make sure that you have understood the learning outcomes or what they expect you to have achieved after completing that chapter. That's point number one. Number two, learn the meaning of each new term. You have to learn the meaning of each new term. Make sure that at least new term as it appears. This is important, as it appears, because you have to learn the meaning of each new term. If let's say I've moved from chapter 1, I've found we've been talking about financial accounting, and I've learned the definition of financial accounting. We saw something to do with maybe classification or summarizing and others. Make sure you learn these, and you should learn them at that same point when you have just seen them, because you can't say that the first chapter I'll understand them maybe when I'm in the third chapter. It will be confusing. Just understand each new term that will appear as it comes, because if you fail to understand what financial accounting is and what are some of the key items that are within the definition of financial accounting, it will be hard for you if you go to the conceptual framework and you start talking about the business entity concept. You start talking about things to do with materiality. So you will see that these are going to come in as new things that you need to learn. So it is better you learn each new term as it appears, not to wait that I'll learn that maybe later. So don't leave learning what terms mean until you are revising for an exam, because as I said, financial accounting is best learned as a series of building blocks. We learn financial accounting as a series of building blocks. Now these building blocks, just like what we do in financial modeling course. If you have ever attended the financial modeling course, we always start with first things first. If you are modeling a financial statement, there is no way you are going to say, I'm going to have my income statement minus me first developing a revenue schedule, minus me first developing a cost schedule. So we take it as a building block. We learn silly by silly. We go by bit. We look at the first things, we understand them, then we go to the next thing. And that's how accounting is also looked at. Because as I said, for those financial modeling courses, they first build one schedule, they build another schedule, they build another schedule, and after that, they stack those different schedules in a systematic way, vertically, all together to form what we call an income statement. So, even the other example you can look at, if you're building a house, if you're building a house, there is no way you're going to say, I'm going to start from maybe putting the iron sheets before actually you start the ground floor, the basement, having the first things, because you need to first have, there is no way you're going to say, I'm going to build this house, and you don't even know what materials you are going to have in the first place. So if you are to build a house, we first understand the materials that we are going to use, and then we mix them, and finally we start the construction work. And even the construction work is supposed to be done in stages. You see, when they are building, they start with the edges, then they build the middle part. They leave the edges to first dry, they build the middle parts later. So it's supposed to be, even accounting is supposed to be done in that perspective. Therefore, if you don't remember what terms that you've seen, that you've come across, what they mean, then your knowledge and ability to do accounting will be very seriously undermined. Just the same way as you see those walls, there is no way you're going to say, me, I'm going to build a building, I'm going to have a house with just only bricks. You're supposed to have bricks, you're supposed to have a mortar. That is the mixture of water, cement, sand, and other stuff. So there is no way you can say, me, I'm just going to stack these bricks without putting that mortar when you're building a given building block. So you're supposed to put everything together, then you can be able to do that, because it will be more likely to collapse if you just put bricks without this mortar or this mixture of sand, cement, and water. If you just bend on them, they will just fall off, because they are not stacking together with a given amount of mixture that we are talking about. So that's the second point. Learn the meaning of each term as it appears. Don't wait at the end. Now, number three, we should attempt, this one I talked about it, we should attempt each exercise or each simulation. Simulation means exercise, anything that you are supposed to do. Simulations or examples, they may be examples at the point at which they appear in all the chapters. Now, this is very important because it will reinforce your learning, and we are planning to give you a detailed chapter or topic by topic with relevant practice numbers to test your understanding of the topic. However, some of the numbers may have some solution, like if at all we organize this work and we have some CPA numbers, question papers, you may find that you can actually access, if at all you're a CPA student, you can actually, or you're a CPA member, you can go to the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Uganda, you go to their portal or website, then you will be able to download and look at some answers. But the challenge is, I don't encourage someone to get to a question paper and then immediately you rush and download the answer booklet, or you download the solution. You be like as if you are checking. You look at the question, you check the solution. That doesn't work. You'll be cheating yourself. So the best way to do is to make sure you first attempt a question, even if you do it wrongly, but you first attempt, then afterwards you can check on the solution to see where you've gone wrong. But never pick a question and at the same time get its solution and you start comparing, because you are going to be ticking that this is right, this is right. You look at transaction per transaction, that this is treated like this, this is treated. You can only do that maybe if at all you are doing it for the third time. But if you are doing it for the first time, make sure you get a paper, a pen and a calculator, and you sit down and you do the number. That's how you're going to learn. So make sure you attempt each simulation at that point at which it appears. You don't wait for chapter 1 simulations to be done when you have finished chapter 3. No, you make sure, as I said, accounting is done bit by bit. You make sure you first sort what is first, then you look at the other things. You can't go to a new chapter before actually understanding the things that within the previous chapter that you looked at. So, as I said, after trying on your own, make sure you check where you've gone wrong. If it is right, then it means you have understood. If you have gone wrong, then you can check the solution and be able to see what you did wrongly and you can rectify it and then move to the new chapter or the new topic. Now, number four is, I want you to learn the accounting equation. The accounting equation. Now, when you first come across this accounting equation, especially in chapter 1, make sure you learn it, because in accounting, everything is about this accounting equation. Whatever you are going to do will be within that same accounting equation, would have been mentioned by that accounting equation. So you have to learn the accounting equation when you first come across it, especially in chapter 1. So knowing the accounting equation is the key to understanding many of the aspects of accounting that students find a little bit difficult or challenging. Make sure that you learn it in both the forms presented to you, or you learn it so that you can rearrange it and produce the alternative form when appropriate. Because there are some situations that will call to interchange without changing the meaning of the accounting equation. Because we all know that assets equal to owner's equity or capital plus liabilities. That is the accounting question. So whichever we are going to be talking about will be falling under this same category. But when we shall see how we can expand the capital into what we call the owner's equity. Owner's equity. We shall see that. But just now make sure you understand the accounting question as when you have just come across it. Because if you don't understand the accounting question, you are going to find problems. Most of the things that we are going to talk about in accounting, they rotate about this area. Number 5 is you don't need to be disillusioned by the very strange principle of double entry. In other words, you don't need to be discouraged by the principle of double entry. Double entry. Because some students think that the double entry is hard to master, and that's why they get discouraged. And they end up concluding that accounting is a bit hard, or it is a hard subject. So you shouldn't be discouraged by the principle of double entry. Just like, for example, if let's say we all know that if maybe you witness parents divorcing, if you're a child and you witness your parents divorcing, it might delusion your romantic ideas of marriage. But no matter how you may feel, divorcing can't stop marriage from happening, and that's a fact. So even if you feel that maybe the principle of a double entry is a bit hard for me to learn, just know that the principle of double entry was tested and proven to be the principle that accounting runs on. So even the technique of double entry has been in use for over 500 years and above, and is probably the most tried and trusted technique for doing anything you ever likely to encounter in your accounting, and it's not actually difficult. So as long as you remember the accounting equation and you can distinguish between things that you own as a business, if you can be able to distinguish things that you own as a business and the things they owe, the things you owe, or things they demand from the business. Just like the way you master driving a car. Once you understand it, you will never forget it. And the more you drive, the more you'll understand the different techniques that you can use. But the same idea is that you are going to be driving. So it is the same thing even here, that the principle of double entry is one that was tested and trusted to be used on every kind of stuff that you may encounter in financial accounting. So, as long as you understand the accounting equation, that's why we said you need to understand the accounting equation. As long as you understand the accounting equation, then the rest will be very easy for you. And understanding the accounting equation, we want you to know the things you own as a business, those are your assets, and the things that you owe as a business, and those are the liabilities. As long as you understand those, then double entry bookkeeping will actually be very fantastic. We shall look at how the principle of double entry came into play by looking at the history of accounting. We shall look at Pacioli, that mathematician. We shall look at it. Now, point number 6. Before we understand anything about accounting, first know the kinds of business that we have. In other words, if you want to understand accounting, you have to first of all understand the kinds of business or the kinds of businesses available. There is no way you are going to understand accounting before understanding the kind of businesses that we have. Some of the businesses that we have sole trader. We shall look at some of those. We have joint venture. We have partnership. We have then what we call the companies. The joint venture is more of a sole trader because here it is going to be formed by very many people coming together. So the major types we have only 3: the partnership, sole trader business, and then the companies, or what we call the corporations. Then these other ones will come out of this, because even a partnership can convert itself into a company. So others will come in as we move on. So for you to be able to understand anything about accounting, first know the kinds of business that we have, because whatever we will be doing is based on these different companies. You will notice that at any level of accounting, we do what we call partnership accounts. But for you to understand partnership, it's more of first looking at the joint venture. If you want to understand partnerships very well, at least if you look at the joint venture businesses will help you to transform your knowledge from the single trader to very many traders. Then you convert now to a partnership. And from then the partnership you can try to look at a company. So if you want to understand more of partnership alone, you need to be at ease with joint ventures, because joint ventures is where people, they are going to come together, they do business, but they set a purpose that we are only want to finish this transaction. Maybe they have got a contract, they come together as different people. When the contract is done, everyone disappears. Now for partnership, it is more of a long term. This is short term. If you're a sole trader, you start your own business, you enjoy all the profits, you also enjoy all the losses, you are the one who brings capital and everything. Then for the company, you can be a sole trader, you can be a partnership, then you convert it into a limited liability company or a limited liability company. So first understand the business. Before you look at anything to do with accounting, make sure you understand the business, because it is these businesses that we are going to be dealing in, day out. So as I said, for you to understand partnerships very well, you must have been at ease with joint ventures, because it helps you to bridge the gap between accounting for sole trader businesses and the accounting for partnerships. And it makes it easier for you to understand the differences. Because if you first look at the joint venture, it will be easy for you to transfer the knowledge to a partnership. But some of these joint ventures, we may not actually study them. Maybe if they... So for those who are going to be doing diplomas, and those who are doing... For those who are doing diplomas, and for those who are doing maybe bachelors, we may look at those joint venture, we may look at things to do with branch accounting, we may look at things like consignment accounting, we may look at department accounting, we may look at hire purchase. But if you look at the syllabus for CPA, the current syllabus, some of those things we may not actually cover them. But here, as I said, we are bringing everything. We shall also look at all those different aspects. Now let's look at number 7. Point number 7, that is the last point that I want you to look at as the tip. One of the ways that you can be able to understand or pass your financial accounting. Above all, you need to remember that accounting is a method for providing financial information. Accounting is just a method, for providing financial information in a form that assists the users in decision making, in a form that assists the users in decision making. Meaning that accounting has users, so that assist the users in decision making. Now it means accounting information has users. The users of this financial information, the financial information helps them to make informed decisions. Therefore, we are always required to work hard at presenting our work as neatly as possible, and also so we've said that, so we are always required to work very hard at presenting our work as neatly as possible, and these financial figures should be presented in a simpler form to all the users to understand, because these figures carry half the message, but where possible, we use words to explain more, as we shall see when you're preparing these financial statements, because we will see that when you're preparing these financial statements, we may actually have notes to accounts, where we shall be putting some of the things. If you go to financial reporting, you will be seeing what we call the notes to accounts, that after preparing financial statements, you put a note to give more highlights. There are certain things that we may report, like contingent liabilities or contingent assets. These are some of the things that we may have in the notes to accounts or the notes to financial statements. Now, I want us to look at how these questions are going to be structured for our understanding. That's what I want us to look at. How are these questions going to be structured for our understanding? So we look at review and structure of the questions in our simulation or in our exercises. So how are we going to be structuring these questions? Now, we will make sure that we bring up some review questions. As I said, these questions are going to be coming maybe at the end of every topic. We have some trial numbers that we are going to be having. Now, these review questions, they are going to be structured in a way, especially at the end of every chapter, as I said, they are going to be structured in a way that will enable you to gauge how you have understood and how you can apply what you have learned, starting with the easiest and then going on to the difficult one. Because we believe that if we give you all straightforward questions, and we don't give, because the questions, we are going to start with the simpler ones, and then we get to the advanced questions. Now, some of these advanced questions may be from CPA. We may be talking about something that is maybe from a diploma level, but when you look at the advanced questions, we pick questions from CPA, from ATD, from SCCA. So that's where we may pick these advanced questions to help us understand better. Because if we give you only straightforward questions, the simpler one, then you will be shocked by meeting more complicated questions for the first time in your examination, and that would lead you to fail. So it's going to be a mixture of questions to give you the maximum benefit that you will expect from this. So when I talk about the review and structure of the questions in our simulations, we are trying to get to the point that we can actually stick to the channel and be able to have these questions without looking anywhere, and we'll be able to pass our different examinations at different levels. So we are going to structure questions basing on the simpler one as per the topic, so that every chapter we can have at least some numbers that will enable us to actually have a wider understanding of the topic that we have discussed. And that is going to help us to gauge on how we can actually apply what we have learned in a chapter. So it's going to be a mixture of questions that will give you a maximum benefit. Now, the best approach is for you to first attempt each question, and then if there are solutions, because as I said at the beginning, some of these questions, like I've talked about, if they are belonging to CPA at the Institute of Certified Public Accountants, you can download the solutions. You can also download the question papers. So if you get these solutions, make sure you first try out the number. After trying out the number, then you check the solution to see whether you've gone wrong or you've done the right thing, but not checking the solution before you attempt. So the best option is for you to first attempt the question and then check your answers. And when you're checking the answers, make sure you check fully against the answers. Like you check everything, don't check out only the answers. Someone can just check on the solution and they just look at the answer alone. Because if you look at the answer alone, if the other examiner did it in a different way, you fail to get that or to appreciate the method that examiner used to actually come up to the solution. If well and good you've gotten the same answer like what appears in the solutions, then it would be nicer for you to go through all the details that person went through to get up to that point. If it is the same procedure, then well and good. So that's the best way to approach the questions that we are going to be talking about in this kind of scenario. So that's basically what we are going to be doing. We are going to bring in first simpler questions and then we keep on adding. Now, I want us to understand why it's important for us to practice numbers in accounting. Because when you hear me talking about questions, looking at how are we going to structure our questions that we are going to be presenting in these tutorials, is because we want you to be able to practice a lot. Practicing a lot in accounting is the only way for you to master accounting. And why is it so important that you should actually be practicing? And still, these are some of the tips that you should have for any financial accounting paper. These are do's and don'ts. So let's look at why is it important for us the need to practice. The need for practice. Now, there is no way you're going to pass accounting minus trying numbers. You try as many numbers as possible. Now, you should try to practice numbers and answer questions as many simulations as possible, because it is going to help you understand. One of the reasons as to why we encourage you to practice more numbers as you can. One, even though you may think that maybe you have understood a chapter, when you come to answer the questions, you may often find your understanding is incomplete, because the true test of understanding is whether or not you can tackle a question and complete it. You do it effectively. Like if you have understood something, we believe that when you're applying the knowledge that you've learned, it should be able to help you tackle each number from that chapter. So by doing very many numbers, it's going to help you be efficient, because most of the times people fail because of time management. So you are going to be, the reason why we want you to be practicing is because some people may learn the topic, but when it comes to answering questions, they fail because they can't even solve any question on the topic that they are saying they know. So it is always important to practice. Number two, it is often said that practice makes perfect. That is from what we have learned when we are still young, it is just a sentiment. And most of the times we don't fully agree. We don't fully agree with it, even though there is enough sense in it, because if you don't do a quite of numbers in accounting, you will not certainly become good at accounting, because there is no way you are going to prove yourself. These are numbers. You are supposed to try as much as possible. Now, number three is you simply have to get up to the good speed. We need speed in accounting. Good speed, we need speed in answering, good speed in answering questions. So we need good speed in answering questions. Now, you will always fail accounting exams if at all you are very slow. If you are a very slow worker, then you are going to fail in accounting, because accounting, the history of accounting examinations so far have always been that they have been a little bit ridiculously, that they give you a large amount of work and they expect a student to actually do it in a very short period of time. So the numbers are always big, but they expect you to do it in a very short period of time. And even these examining boards maintain that the examination could be complete in the time by an adequately prepared student. If you are not. So number 4, appropriate presentation of financial information. Appropriate presentation of financial information is important. So you need to learn how to present the various financial statements. When we talk about presentation, we are talking about the financial statements. And these financial statements, they include income statements, they include balance sheet, and finally the cash flow statements, or the statement of cash flow. Those are the 3 financial statements, and you need to learn how to present them, because appropriate presentation of these financial statement is very important if you are to communicate something to the users. So you need to learn how to present these various financial statements that you may need to produce in an examination, because the examiner expects you to see the items. If, let's say, we are looking at the income statement, we expect that we need to look at things that are within the trading account. We need to look at the other part of profit and loss, where you get the gross profit minus the operating expenses to be able to reach at the gross profit, the net profit of the business. So we need to see the items of trading and profit and loss accounts. We need to see the items that are within the balance sheet. We talk about the non-current assets, the current assets, this capital, the liabilities, and others. We also need to look at the items that are within the income, the cash flow statements, the operating cash flows, investment cash flows, and others, depending on different methods that we shall be using to prepare some of them. So you need to know the correct items and you present them in a correct order. And most of the times they will actually deduct marks if at all you don't present them in the direct order. Just take for instance, if let's say you look at you are preparing an income statement, and instead of you starting with the trading account, you start by getting maybe the expenses. You add up the expenses, you bring the sales down, so you mess up everything. So they are supposed to be in a correct order. You may get the right answer, but when you have presented this in a wrong format. That's why when we are looking at some of those financial statements, we shall look at formats of each of them and how they are supposed to be presented. So for practice, when we are practicing, make sure that we write down examples of these statements without any numbers. We just present the formats until we've gotten or we've mastered the layout of these financial statements. Then you can be able to add in the values. But what we need to know is we are supposed to have the right formats if at all we are to get good marks. Now, let us now look at some small items that are supposed to be included, and will have things to do with headings. Why is it important for us to have our financial statements having those headings? Oh, why is it important that we need headings for most of the things that we are going to be doing? So let's look at the need for headings. Need for headings. The need for headings in the financial statements. Why is it important for us to have statements, headings in our financial statements? And these are the things that we are supposed to have for us to be able to do our accounting very well. Now, we said that work should be neat. In other words, it should be laid out well. It should be neat. It should have a clear view whereby the person following or the person viewing these statements can actually see what they are talking about. But headings should always be given. And when you're giving headings, we know that when you are preparing a heading, you first of all start with the name of the company. After the name of the company, then you are supposed to give us the date. Then from the date of that financial statement, we have also to put the currency, and everything is embedded within the headings. So we should always give headings to whatever we are preparing. If it is an income statement, please provide a heading that this is for such company and it is for such a period. It is prepared within these currencies. So for example, the test you can apply is to imagine that maybe you're a partner in an audit firm. If you are maybe in an audit firm and you're a partner, meaning you are one of the people who actually, because most of the times these audit firms, they are going to come as partnerships, because you are going to be joining people of the same profession. Mainly when you're forming an auditing firm, it's for the professional accountants. They come together. They are supposed to be CPAs, SCCAs, depending on the region that they are forming their auditing firm from. Now, imagine you are one of the partners, and maybe you take leave from office. And when you have taken a leave, the leave days maybe it's for, let's say, few weeks, or let's say 2 weeks. And during that time, you find that your assistant, all these accounts assistants, they have completed all the sorts of work, including reports. They have made even reports for different customers. They have made financial reports, they have made financial statements, they are available. They have also drafted the final accounts and others. Now, and all of this work is deposited on your desk, that by the time you come back, you'll find those documents ready for you to peruse through and be able to append signatures and all that. Now, but when you return to office, you realize that if you look at each of the item, let's say you have looked at an income statement, they have brought so many documents, but they have piled them to your attention, waiting for your attention. And maybe the first one you look at, let's say you are looking at a balance sheet. A balance sheet as per, let's say a balance sheet for 2020 or 2024, or 2023. And now this is saying it is a balance sheet of the year 2023, but they have not put any date, whether it is started, maybe it is as, because the balance sheet is supposed to be as at a given point, even if it is there, maybe as at 31st December 2020. Now, you can see that here you've seen the balance sheet. It is true, it is for a year ended 31st December 2020. But now you're not seeing the client's name, or the institution, or the company that these financial statements are belonging to. You find yourself hard. You can't do anything about it, because there is no way you're going to say this is belonging to such and such a customer, because you've not seen a heading. The heading is not written in a way that portrays the things that are supposed to be done by the accountants. So if your juniors have presented these financial statements, and when you start looking at them, when you start examining them, you find that maybe they have not clearly put the name of the customer that they are working on, the name of the company, or they have not even put the date. They have just said it is a balance sheet, but they are not showing a balance sheet of which period. So you are going to find yourself, you are going to be upset, because you don't, according to this, to the way you want things to be done, that's not how they are supposed to be doing the kind of work, especially when they have prepared a lot of work when you are not around, but they prepared wrong things, which means they are supposed to go back and represent the same information. So it is the same way that is going to happen if at all you just present your work to the examiner. You find on the booklet you have not even started putting maybe the date, you have not put the name of the customer, you've not put the period. So it is always important for us to make sure that our financial statements, we always write, first we put the name of the company, and then we put the type of statement that we are preparing. The other thing is to make sure that we specify it is for which period. After knowing it is for which period, you also put the currency. If let's say I'm preparing for KC group, I would say it is a balance sheet, as at 31st December 2023. Then I can decide not to put the currency in here. Then I go to, when I'm starting, so you will see that this one will actually give you 1 mark for putting a correct heading. If it is an income statement, you also put it is an income statement. Now, the other aspect in terms of headings is that if let's say I'm preparing the balance sheet, as we've seen, but now on this balance sheet, I'm seeing that when you start a balance sheet, you have to start with non-current assets. If this one is going to come as a heading, then you start listing them, PPE, or they can be plant, equipment, and property, plant and equipment. Then you can have, maybe you have buildings. But now when you are done with this, you have to make sure that you put another heading to show that you have finished the class of non-current assets. Then you are going to look at the current assets. It's the same thing even when then you start cash, bank, and other stuffs as they may appear in your work that you are going to do. So it is always important to have those headings. Even if you're looking at an income statement, we always give some headings where necessary. Like if let's say I'm computing, this is an income statement. I've started with my sales. Maybe I don't have the net sales, and I'm saying less cost of sales. But remember, cost of sales has a working, so you can underline that and you start with opening stock. Then you add purchases. Then you less closing stock if there are no other purchase returns or goods stolen and other stuff. So these are the headings that we are talking about. You give them as when they are required. So you'll find that if you draw your columns like this, you'll find your current signs have been put here. Maybe I'm working in thousands and others. So that's what we are meaning by having headings in our financial statements. So we have to make sure that we have the date across the top of the statement, and also including the subtotals. We should also give them some attention. Like if let's say you look at non-current assets plus current assets, you find that you first add up the total current assets, then you also get the total non-current assets, you add them up to get the total assets. Those are subtotals, subheadings that we are meaning here. They are supposed to be there for you to actually know that you know what you're doing. So that's what I wanted to highlight on the headings. Now let's look at something about the examination techniques and understanding the examiner, because before you start on any topic or any chapter, you will see the learning outcomes. They have given you the learning outcomes, what they expect the student to must have understood if at all they say that they have covered this chapter or this topic. So by you going through that, it means even when the examiner is going to be testing, is going to be testing the learning outcomes, because it's going to find, have you really understood this? So if they set any question about a given chapter, they will be testing whether you actually achieved the learning outcomes that were set for that specific topic. So let's look at the examination technique and understanding the examiner. And understanding examiners. Now, by the time you sit your first examination, you'll have spent a lot of time, a lot of hours trying to master such things about double entry. It could be about double entry, because we said accounting is all about double entry. It could be accounting equation. It could be balance sheet. So by the time you come to do your examination, you must have faced a lot of these kind of stuff, income statement and others. So you must have done a lot of these. You must have adjusted final adjustments, final accounts adjustments, and others. Now, learning accounting or learning bookkeeping demands a lot of discipline and practice. So, compared to the many hours of learning a given subject, most students spend very little time actually considering in detail how to tackle the examination. And you could be one of them, but I would like you to start planning from now onwards, and you'll be able to plan that maybe when it comes to that day for the final exam, when you will need to be able to demonstrate what you have learned or what you have understood by applying the materials that you look at in these different video lectures. If you have actually understood something, the examination will be just testing you if you can really demonstrate what you have learned. So if you go through all these tutorials, you must be able to plan that by the time I'm going to be sitting these examinations, I must know how am I going to interpret the exam. Now, understanding the examiner or understanding the examiners, we need to look at what these people expect from us. And the first thing is that when they set an examination, they are looking at it on the basis that they want good students to get a pass mark, because that's their main objective, is actually to get the good students, or they may not necessarily be good, but the prepared one. to actually get the pass mark. Obviously, anyone who doesn't achieve the pass mark will actually fail. But the objective of the exercise or objective of the examination is not to find those who will pass and not to find those who actually could fail. But the idea is to test how someone has been prepared to demonstrate what they have been learning. Now, this means that if you have done your work properly, if you are not sitting an examination well above your intellectual capabilities, you should manage to get a pass mark. If at all you have prepared yourself, you have learned, you have been practicing, then you shouldn't, if at all that there is nothing that is going to disturb your intellectual capabilities, then you should be, if maybe you're not sick, you should be able to actually get the pass mark. That's the only way to demonstrate that you've been actually practicing some of these things. Now, a number of students, they may fail, but it doesn't mean that they have not maybe put in enough hours of reading or enough hours of studying, or maybe they are not all that serious people. No, the issue is that these people, they are not just that they are unintelligent. No, the point is that they were not capable to demonstrate what they have learned, because you are not going to get straightforward things that the way you studied it in your class is the same way you're going to see it, or you're going to be doing the same number. We may actually study something very broad, but when they are setting, you see they are picking out some small key things that you already know. And that's how you can be able to demonstrate what you learned, to be able to execute what task they have given you and get the pass mark. Now, most of the students, they actually fail because they don't actually implement the proper examination techniques. They lose, you find someone is losing marks on certain things. Like for instance, I can tell you, someone can lose a marks on balance sheet. Someone can be preparing a balance sheet, and instead of the person focusing on the entries, someone is only focusing on the balance sheet that it must balance. Because you are going to waste a lot of time trying to prove yourself that this income statement or this balance sheet is balancing, than the time you would have spent to allocate that time on these other questions. Because you are going to spend maybe 20 marks looking for the error that you committed that made the balance sheet not to balance. It will take you like 20 minutes. But these 20 minutes, you would have used them to do another number. It means you have implemented poor examination technique in cases of managing time. Because as I said, the examination especially for financial accounting, they set a lot of things and they expect you to complete them in a shorter period of time. And it's not a problem to the examining boards, because their thinking is that if a student has been prepared, then he or she should be able to complete the examination in that specified period of time, because every student is going to get the same time, but you find others are passing and others are going to be failing. So what we are calling for here is to make sure that at least we have different techniques that we can use to actually manage our examination. And the first one we said is to first understand what the examiner is all about. These examiners, for them, they just want to test those who are prepared to get the pass mark. They are not interested of checking those who are going to fail or checking those who are going to pass. Their intention is actually to make sure that this person we are giving our certificate, this person we are giving our transcript, has demonstrated some practical things that we expected this person to actually bring out. So that's basically what we need. But as per the examination techniques, the right way to manage your exam is all about looking at the punctuality. There are things that we are going to look at. We are going to look at each of them in details, because I know they sound a little bit simpler, but these are the same techniques that are going to help us pass or fail. So we have to improve on our punctuality. We improve on even following instructions. Following instructions. Of course, I'm meaning examination instructions. Then even time planning. Time planning is very important. Time planning. Even attempting the required questions. We shall see how is it different from following instruction. It's slightly the same, but it's a bit different. So let's look at one by one and how best can we be able to go through each of those aspects. Let's look at punctuality. Now, before thinking about the examination paper itself, let us think about how you are going to get to the examination room. How you are going to get to the examination room. This is very important question. Now, if the examination room is at your own college, then you have no problem as to how you'll get in the examination room. Now, I'm looking at the other side, whereby someone is commuting, whereby these people, they have external examination centers. External examination centers. Like, for instance, the CPA. If you are doing the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Uganda, they just select where students are going to do their examinations from, meaning it's always going to be an external center. So it's the same way CPA does its own things. Now, how do you know exactly where the place is? Because it is also a problem. If you don't actually know where the place is, they may not actually give you the location. They just give you in your examination permit that we are going to go do our exams from such and such a place. It's up to you to know how you are going to get there. Now, if you actually don't know the exact place, if possible, you better take a trip to that place before the examination time. So The other question is, how are you going to get there? Because it's going to be a problem. Are you going to go there by a taxi? I'm meaning on the examination date. Are you going to go there by a taxi? Are you going to go by boda boda, or you have your personal car? Have you looked at, because now going there, first doing a trip there to know the place, if at all you don't know, it gives you a way how you are going to time that if I leave home 30 minutes to the examination time, I will be able to reach without any jam and other kind of stuff, inconveniences on the way. Now, you need to look at the estimated time that you are going to take for you to, from where you are going to come from to where you are going to be doing your examination, because you have to reach the examination center early to avoid these very last minute, those last minute things. They don't actually help. By the time, if you're already late, you find yourself starting off the exam in a very nervous state. You're panicking, even the things you have read, because when you are going for an exam, you have to calm yourself, make sure that you can be comfortable. You arrive at the examination center maybe 30 minutes or 20 minutes before the examination, so that you give yourself some time to relax your mind and be able to avoid this last minute thing. Now, the other issue that is very important is last minute learning, especially when you're learning new things. Last minute learning for your examination will be of little use, because those last few days before the examination should not be spent cramming new things. You can use that time to look at maybe some past paper numbers, to rework out some numbers, to rework out some of the recent past paper numbers, to see that you can totally get yourself from the new style of cramming things. Because cramming at the last minute, it will not really make a lot of sense, because by the time you reach the examination, you are just increasing yourself, you're just increasing tension on yourself, and you find yourself panicking because you read something, you can't even understand it, but you're just cramming. It just doesn't really help a lot most of the times. Finally, on your way to your examination, you have to try as much as possible. You try some relaxation exercises like deep breathing exercises that will put you into a relaxed mode, because you need to access these examinations when you really know what you are going to be doing, and even the mind is at ease. Now, if you look at the instructions, you need to read the rubric. These are the instructions carefully and follow the instructions or its instructions, because they may tell you attempt 3 numbers. You have read, it says attempt 2 numbers, but you go ahead and attempt 3. So the rubric appears at the start of every examination paper. It may say something that you may have something like attempt, let's say 5 questions, 5 questions only. Then they put semicolon and they say 3 questions, from section A. I'm just giving an example, section A. Then they can also tell that 2 questions from section B. So the instruction from the examiner is supposed to be followed exactly, and you can't change the instruction because it means what it says. If they are saying do 5 questions, 3 from section A and 2 from section B, you should do that. Now I'm going to give you cases or scenarios where you find the instructions from the examiner is supposed to be followed as it is. Now, you may think that it is very simple and it is understandable, or it's not worthwhile pointing out, but many students don't actually follow the instructions. And it's a fact. And it might appear that students actually failed to interpret the instructions or has nothing to write, hence ending up with something like, we are going to look at some of the situations. If you look at the CPA examiner's remarks or comments, you will see some of these kind of stuffs. If you download them from the Institute of Certified Public Accountants website, you will see the kind of stuffs that we are talking about here. Now, one student, we can have a scenario. Scenario 1, in that aspect where we are told to attempt 5 questions, 3 from question A, 3 from section A and 2 from section B. Now, a student can answer 2 questions. Just look at my argument, can do 2 questions from section A. And then he goes and do 3 questions from section B. When you look at them, these are 5 questions because the rubric was attempt 5 questions only. If you look at these, there are also 5 questions, but now the challenge is the rubric said 3 questions should be from section A and then 2 should be from section B. Now, this is how the examiner is going to be. The examiner will mark these 2 questions, whether they are correct or they are wrong. Will mark all of them in that section A. Plus 2 questions from this section. You will only mark 2 questions from this section B. You will only mark 2 questions, even though you have attempted 3. You will mark only 2 questions. And you will not assume that I'm going to mark all of them and I take the best done. No. He marks the first one the way they appear on the answer booklet. If you started with 1 and you've done maybe 2 on section B, that's how it's going to be marked. Even if on question, the section B number, 1 you've gotten maybe 10, the other you've gotten maybe 8. And maybe this last one you attempted, maybe you were supposed to get, let's say, 18%. Now, or 18 out of 20, what is going to happen is that the examiner will not mark this last question. He will only give you this. That's what happens most of the times. Now, a student who does this kind of stuff, he does it when he knows. Maybe he has seen section A, the questions from section A, he can only attempt 2 questions. But when he looks at section B, he can actually probably attempt the 3 questions, yet they only wanted you to attempt 2. So, the students may do this just to attempt the examiner, that the examiner will mark, because they do it with the thinking that the examiner will mark all the 3 questions and it picks out the best done, no? Remember, each paper they mark, they are paid according to what they have marked. No one can mark something that is not going to be paid for, because the instructions are clear. So that's why we are saying there is nothing you can say, I'm changing the kind of question. The other aspect, let me also give you another scenario. The other scenario would be scenario 2. A student can actually answer 3 questions from section A. And also do 3 questions from section B. What will happen is that the examiner will come and mark all these 3 sections, the 3 questions that we have got from section A. Then on these 2, you will only mark, on these 3 that you have attempted, you will only mark 2 questions. The other will not be marked. Now, in this case too, the student can do this with an intention. Someone does it knowing deliberately that maybe the examiner would mark all the 3 questions from section B, and then they award the student marks from the best 2 questions. And most of the times the examiners will not waste their time marking the extra question that wasn't required. Therefore, if you have time and you want to give an extra answer, thinking that you will be marked or you will get the best marks than the one you have answered, because it may happen, I may look at this section B numbers and I see maybe the first number I attempted, I'm not sure whether you can raise 20 marks. But I've finished the 2 numbers that were in here, and I'm still having maybe 40 minutes to time. So within these 40 minutes, I can think about how I can solve the 3rd question. And I say, maybe I'm very sure I can get that 18 marks out of it. But the one I had first attempted, I'm sure I will only get maybe 15 or 10. So what happens is that you make sure that the other first number, you cross it. You get a ruler, or even if you don't get a ruler, at least you cancel them. You can even say omitted. So that when the person, because the problem will be if you cross this and maybe the other number, the examiner may actually stop on these crossings and thinks that you didn't do any other number. So to avoid that, you make sure that at least this one is omitted work, so that the examiner knows if he sees you have crossed, he can go and mark the other last 2 numbers. But you only do that when you get time. And most of the times, financial accounting papers, you don't get that time. Most of the times. So that's what I can show you. The reason that's why we put in omitted is, one, to tell the examiner that we have deleted that out, so that he can look at the other numbers and be able to mark. Now, let's look at time management. Time management or time planning. Time planning. Now, we must look at the way in which you should tackle the examination paper. One of the problems with bookkeeping or accounting examination is that students are expected to do a lot of work in a relatively short time, because time will be the same for every student. You may say that I didn't complete, but others did, meaning this time was even to all the students. But how are you going to manage your time is going to determine whether you are going to do more numbers as required or you are going to do less. Now, if we look at managing time comes with working with the speed, because you are going to be having you are allocated same minutes for all the students for that examination, and you can't say it's unfair when maybe one student is not concerned about the speed, because it brings a problem if at all you can't work with the speed. That's why we advise that you make sure you practice more numbers and you see how best can you do a number in a short period of time. If you can be able to work with a good speed, then you will be able to manage your time. Now, I want us to look at time per question, allocating time per question. Now, whatever we're talking about, these are the things that you should do as you are practicing. Don't wait for the examination, because you can't say, I'm just going to do time management when I'm in the examination. No. These are the things that you are supposed to go with strategically. Be with them throughout until you do your paper. Now, the marks allocated to each question will indicate how long you should take in tackling the question. And most of the examinations are 3 hours. Most 3 hours. They put for you 15 minutes for preparation. Read it through, then you select what you are going to do. But the time is always 3 hours. Now, these 3 hours, that's the duration. It is equivalent to 180 minutes. Now, if it is 180 minutes, this means that a normal examination, which is marked out of 100%, that is a normal examination that is marked out of 100% in total. Then a 20-mark question. A 20-mark question should be allocated 20%. 20% of the time. Remember, the time we have 180 hours, so it will be 20% of 180. That means that question will be given 36 marks, 36 minutes. The other person could attempt this in a sense that since we are getting 100%, that's the max we have, and the maximum hours we have 108, the maximum minutes 108, you could say that it's going to be 180 divided by 100. So that this gives you a 1.8. meaning 1 mark should take you 1.8 minutes. That is the implication. Even when you just get these 20 marks, 20 times 1.8, you must be getting 36 minutes. So that's what I was talking about, that the marks that have been allocated on the question determines how long you should spend on that question. Even when you are not done with the question, please, if time goes beyond 36 minutes and the question is for 20 marks, please leave the question and go to another question. Because by default, if you haven't been able to complete that in that time, then it means you are struggling to get the answers. Otherwise, if you knew, you would have done this number in maybe 20 minutes or 25, so that each mark takes one minute. So that's the kind of analysis that I want us to look at. Also, if a question is going to be maybe 30 marks, if the question is 30 marks, then it means it will be 30 times the 1.8 minutes. Or the other person would say it will be 30% times 108 minutes. And that should be able to give you 54 minutes. Those are the minutes you should spend on a 30. Now, CPA questions, most of the times on level 2, they are 40 marks. Question 1. Level 2, then going forward. Others have 50 marks. But if it is a 40 mark, then it means it will be 40% times 180 minutes. Or you get the 1.8 times, because the 1.8 minutes is the time that you are supposed to spend for each mark that is awarded on that question. Now, there are instances. If you look at a question, the question has very many parts, and the marks are awarded. They are also shown beside the question, or against each part they have allocated some marks. Now, if you look at maybe a question has 5 marks, please, there is no way you are going to spend 15 marks with 15 minutes when you are earning only 5 marks. Doesn't add up. So you need to balance the time depending on the marks allocated. Now, the other issue I want us to talk about within the same looking at the examination, I want us to focus on doing the easiest questions first. Do the easiest questions first. Do the easiest questions first. Don't wait that this is a very easy question, so I'll do it at the end. You will reach there when you are already exhausted, you are tired, the head has been overthinking. Always tackle the easier questions first. Then if maybe the easier question I can get 18 marks, start with that. Maybe you're seeing the next question you can get maybe 15 marks. Make sure that is the second one. If you're done with this, do the one you can get 15 marks. You look at where you can spend less time but getting more marks. That is the criteria. So it gives you, because if the one for 18 marks 18 marks you can spend maybe, remember, it is out of 20. I'm just assuming if it is out of 20. And we've said if it is out of 20 marks, you are supposed to spend 36 minutes. Now, if at all this first easiest question you can be able to do it in 25 minutes or 20 minutes, it means you have saved, if you have done it in 20 minutes, you have saved more 16 minutes other difficult questions. If you keep saving 5 or 10 to 7 minutes on each question, for the next question, you will finish your exam on time or in time. Because in every examination, there is always that easy question. Even the examiners, when they are setting, they always set those, we call them warm-up questions. But if you haven't studied even that warm-up question, you will not even see it if you have not been reading or you have not been practicing. But there are those warm-up questions that if you start with this, it can be able to warm you up. You get some good marks. You get motivated to do more numbers. Even you get motivated to think about these other harder questions. So most of the times these warm-up questions, they are fairly done and they take less time because they are not all that difficult questions. And the examiner expects you to tackle these ones fast because those are the ones that you can do and maximize the points, but at the end of the day, you are saving on the time you are spending on the question. Maybe the last thing that I want to talk about as far as this section of the examiner, understanding the exam, the examination and the examiner, is the attempt, the need to attempt. You are supposed to attempt all the questions. Attempt all the required. Attempt the required questions. Now, the last point concerning the time allocation, which I want to get through, is you should attempt each and every question as required on each question. So, on each question, the first few marks are the easiest to get. For instance, on an essay question where you are required to just write things, maybe write short notes about something, it is reasonably easy to get, let's say, 5 marks out of 20. It is very easy if it is an essay for you to get the 5 marks out of 20, especially when it's your last question. Because as I said, we start with the easy things first. Now, if they wanted me maybe to do 5 questions, but I've done 4, on this other one, maybe I'm caught up with the time, maybe I'm remaining with 20 minutes. These 20 minutes, you can't fail to get at least 5 marks. If the other one you got 18, the first one, the second one you've got 15, maybe the next one you got 10, then the other one maybe you got 8, and finally this one you can't fail to get 5 marks. If you look at all these, you'll find yourself you are a bit far, because this would be 33 and this one would be, that is 22, that is 55. If the pass mark is 50, you have already gone ahead. So that's how we look at we attempt the required questions. And I want you to understand from this that what is key in an exam is that time will never be enough. So when the allocated time on the question is done, please don't stick to the question. Leave and do other numbers. So that's it. The other thing that I want us to start looking at is the things to do with computations. Because this is financial accounting, we expect computations. How are we going to be handling the computations? This is another tip. We are looking at the tips that can help us understand, do our financial accounting at any level with ease, and we fail, we pass with our first attempts. Now, when you sit an examination, you should be trying to demonstrate how well you know the topics that have been examined. In financial accounting or in any accounting examinations, there are three things in particular to remember. And if you fail to do so, you will probably earn less marks than your knowledge deserves. One of the things I have already talked about it, which is being neat and being tidy. Tidy work, neat and tidy. And the other two are to do with computations whereby we are supposed to show our workings. Computation is all about showing the workings. Now, let me emphasize something on the workings, because this is very important. Workings. There is no way you're going to do an accounting number without having something to do with workings. Now, I don't want you to bother yourself on whether the balance sheet has balanced or it hasn't balanced. But I want you to make sure when it comes to your workings, they are very neat and tidy. You have written them well and you have expressed how they are supposed to be done in the right way. The rest, if you present your balance sheet and it doesn't balance, please don't panic. As long as you have done the right entries, don't panic. Now, when you look at the workings, one golden rule which should always be observed is to show all your workings. You need to show all your workings. Suppose you have been asked maybe to work out on something to do with, let's say, cost of goods. Cost of goods sold. And you've been told to just do cost of goods sold, not as part of the trading account in our income statement. No, but you have been told to prepare cost of goods sold as a separate question. Now, your workings is going to look like this. We are going to have opening stock. We are going to have opening stock of, let's put in some values. Maybe this is 4,000 shillings. Then we are going to add purchases, and this is maybe, let me just say 11,000. And if you add this, it will give you 15,000. Now, you less off closing stock. If I less off closing stock, let's say I've left off closing stock of, let me just put 2,000. I less it off. When I less it off, I'll get the cost of goods sold. The right answer is supposed to be 13,000. But there is something I want to show you. Let me change. This is the right answer. It's supposed to be 13,000. Let me change this answer. And maybe I have mistakenly wrote something. Let's say I wrote 14. Maybe it was just an arithmetic error. So, this is what is going to happen. If in an exam I give this, and I've provided this whole working as arriving at the cost of goods sold, but I've realized that the answer I've given is a wrong one. This answer, if the examiner is marking, will mark this wrong. But I can't get 0, because he will give me this. At least I will have like a half, 1.5 marks. If maybe the examiner had allocated maybe 3 marks, I'll have 1.5 out of 3. But just take for instance, if someone did this, all of this on a side paper, and he never touched this working, but when he did his computation, he picked out the figure as 14,000. But we all know the right answer should have been 13,000. Meaning this person will be marked wrong and he will get 0 out of 3. But me, I will be marked wrong here, but I will have some 1.5 marks. That's the very big reason as to why we encourage you to attach our workings on all these aspects, because we can get arithmetic errors here. It is very possible. Sometimes even the easiest things becomes difficult, because you can use your head when you're in an exam, and you actually see that you've made a mistake, but you said you're not going to use a calculator because you see the number is very easy. Please, always in an exam, make sure you use a calculator, even for a single thing, just to be sure. It's only when you are sure that you can actually depend on your head, but we all have that examination fear that comes out. Even the simple things becomes a little bit hard, because we are trying to manage time and also be able to get good marks. So that's what I want to talk about for headings. Now, I want to a little bit talk about something to do with a balance sheet. Is a balance sheet supposed to balance? Do balance sheets are supposed to balance? In an exam, balance sheets have to balance in an exam. I bring out things that are seen to be easily understood, but these are the things that make you get a different answer and I get a different answer. Now, many students ask themselves, what should I do if my balance sheet doesn't balance? The answer is quite simple. Leave it alone and get on with answering other questions. Answer the rest of the examination paper, because one of the reasons for this error, for this maybe balance sheet not to balance, just the answer is leave it alone. Leave it alone, even though unbalanced. Because you can spend 30, let's say 15 minutes looking at the error you committed that made your balance sheet not to balance. But you would have spent these 15 minutes in earning, let's say 5 mark or 10 mark in a different question. Balancing this balance sheet, the balancing figure may have an allocated marks of, let's say, 2 marks. But you have wasted 15 minutes trying to look for 2 marks. So as part of managing time, just make sure that you proceed and you do the rest as required. Then when you finish all the numbers, you can come back and relook at the things that you did. Then you can be able to correct it. And if you fail to correct it, please don't cross your work. Just leave and submit your work. So let's look at the summary of the tips that we talked about. Summary of the tips. The do's and don'ts. The whole of what we have been talking about is the tips that are going to help us excel. You must remember the following, as we have discussed, as the popular things that you must do to pass your accounting examination with ease. So you have to remember things that you are supposed to read, the rubric or the instructions. You have to plan your time. You have to tackle the easiest questions first. Finish answering each question when your time allocated for that gets up. If you find that 36 minutes is done on a 20-mark question, please move. Then hand in all your workings. Remember to be neat and also include proper headings, dates, subtotals, and others, because a lot of marks will be lost if at all you don't do that. Then the other is answer only the required questions. Then the other thing I want you to note is that in every question, because most of the questions that they will give us, they may give us a question where we are supposed to have a passage. You read through the passage, but make sure as you read through, you underline some of the keywords.